I talk about animal realm, yeah? Yes. Yeah. How do I know? How do you deny knowing? What I mean? How do I know? How do we? Yeah, that's a good question. How do we get to know things, right? How do we believe in something, right? There must be a way that we believe in something, right? That's a very practical, very useful, very important question. I haven't seen these things happen. How do you know that humans grow into animal and then the goats? How do we know? Now that goes to the original question is, how do we get to know things, right? How do we get to believe in something? We believe in something usually through four ways. Four ways to believe in something. The first is we have to believe things as we perceive it, the raw reality. So I see you, I believe you are here. If I see you, I say you're not here. That's not right, because that is veridical perception, right? This veridical perception. I can see, I see this flowers. I can say, I don't believe there's a flower, because I believe there's a flower through my direct veridical. Veridical means actual perception. I believe in it. That's how I believe in it. If I actually see ghosts, if I actually see an animal talking in the human language and say, I came from Mr. Chen, then I believe in it, right? But you don't see it, right? The first is you believe in something by direct veridical perception. You actually see it. And then the second way you believe in something is not necessarily actually seeing it. I believe in something through what? Inference, postulation. Inference and postulation means you believe based on some logical presumptions. You believe in it, and you believe in those premises that are set up, and you logically believe that's true. I believe in it through postulation, through inference, right? For example, I haven't seen my granddad, my great-granddad with my actual eyes, not through direct veridical perception, but I believe my granddad existed before, right? Right? How do I believe my great-granddad exists? Because I've never seen him. I believe through postulation, through inference. I believe in it. I don't necessarily have to see my great-granddad to believe that I have a great-granddad, right? Right? That's my inference. The third belief is there is some sources that I think are trustworthy, so I believe in it. For example, if my dad told me that I have a father, I believe in my dad because my dad won't lie to me. I believe it through two ways. By inference, that I have a great-grandfather, by my dad, whom I trust, right? So I believe in a source that I trust, right? Right. So those are basically the three ways of belief, right? So I believe in the animal realm, the ghost realm, and the infernal realm, because Buddha told me. And I think that Buddha is a trustworthy source. So I believe in it. I don't actually have to see it. I believe in it. And I also can believe that exists through postulation, through premises and logical reasoning and some premises. Because look, I read so many clinical cases. There was a professor, a scientist by the name Anderson. He conducted 3,000 clinical cases of reincarnation. He spent 30 years of his life with a group of people in India and in many other Asian countries trying to get true stories about reincarnations and actually trace it out. And they have more than 3,000 cases proving that reincarnation do exist. There was a boy by the name Peter in one village, and he was born when he was 5 years old, when he was able to talk, to say, I came from the next village. My name was Jackson, and I was killed. I was drowned in a river, and then you're not my dad, my mom, my dad and mom is by this name, by this name. And then this guy, I don't, shut up, you are my son. No, this is my mom and dad is there. And they actually follow the story through. And actually, yes, whatever the boy said is true. That boy, Peter, was by the name John, and he got drowned in that river, and then he reincarnated into another body. So they totally believe in the reincarnation. And were also cases where there was a butcher who had always been butchering pigs her life, thousands of pigs being butchered by him. And this moment of death, he was panting and he was breathing heavily, he couldn't pass away. Suffer for a few months of just suffering on the bed, probably because of the karmic energy of killing. And then there was a monk who came over and trying to comfort him and say, why don't you pay respect to the Buddha, and if you have you're in your next life, then you will grow better into a person, stop your killing. And that person was really suffering, and that's the only advice, where he put his palm together like that, and he, Namo Buddha, Namo Buddha, Namo Buddha. And he passed away. And then he gave a dream to his mom. I was born in the next village as a pig. And I still have one human hand exist, because he couldn't hold both hands together. It was only one palm. And they went to the next village, and they saw a small little pig with a human hand. In here, like 3 legs with 1 leg as a human hand. And he got that dream from that village. So there's a lot of postulation, inference that there's reincarnation. That is man into animal and animals into men. And there were also cases where people who passed away in the ghost realm, they came back and talked to some friends and talked to some relatives. There's so many cases of reincarnation. If you get into Google, actually, scientifically, they have done a lot of reincarnation cases. They have done a lot of many years ago, they already started. And I think the first one who started is from University of I don't know, what University of Berkeley, UC Berkeley, many years ago that they started this. You research into it. So many different cases. And how do I know? I know I don't have to believe, I don't only believe in things I actually see. Because I know that my eyes, my nose, all my senses are limited in function. My ears are not even better than a dog's ears. As I always mentioned, a dog can hear 2 miles away the siren of an ambulance. I, with human ears, I'm not even better than the dog's ears. The dogs bark now, and then the siren would go by, and oh yeah, he's listening to the siren. He's actually, barking like the sound of the siren. So all my senses, if I only believe in things that my senses actually see, there's so many things I shouldn't have believed in. So you don't trust your senses all the time. So the fact that your senses cannot see does not mean that they don't exist. So you have to use your intelligence, your wisdom, to postulate, to infer on something that you believe. And sometimes you may be fallacious. You kind of infer the wrong thing, then it becomes a fallacy. So like, for example, if I see over there in a remote mountain, I see there's smoke coming up. My inference to believe is, I believe there's some fire going on in there. Because I know that there's no smoke without fire. So I postulate that there's fire in there. I don't actually have to see the fire. I infer from it, there must be a fire burning in there because I can see smoke. Right? Then that means my inference, my postulation is correct. My belief is correct. Because then people over there call me up and say, yeah, we do have a fire in here. So my belief is correct. But sometimes my belief may not be correct. If there was a smoke in there, I said, there's fire in there. And I call up, so remote, the guy said, no, haven't gotten a fire. There's actually some clouds, in black clouds, covering that area. And I fallaciously see that is smoke, and I postulate that there's fire. So that becomes a fallacy. So through inference, if it's correct, then it's a correct inference. If it's not correct, it's a fallacy, right? So not all the time you're correct. But if you only believe in things you actually see, poor, there's so many things you shouldn't believe in. As I always mention, when I first came to Canada, the Prime Minister was Trudeau, right? Pierre Trudeau. I haven't seen him. So I said, I haven't seen Pierre Trudeau. I don't believe he exists. No, because according to records, according to history, I believe in history. I believe it's a trustworthy source because history told me that's what it is. So how do I believe that there's, animal ram, ghost ram, I believe through inference. And believing through inference is a major part of belief. If you only believe in things you actually veridically see, poor, you can't live in here because so many things you haven't seen, and yet they exist. Can your naked eye see the galaxy far away? You cannot. But you cannot say, I can't see them, say they don't exist. You understand? Because through instruments, we can see there are other worlds. There was the moon that we can land on. So, yeah?
When the Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree,
yeah.
He realized all his past lives and went through all kinds of knowledge of the universe and so on. And from that point in time, he learned about those things we're talking about. And that's where we obtained that information from his knowledge of becoming enlightened.
Yeah, that's true. And the Buddha got enlightened at the Bodhi tree, and then slowly, after enlightenment, in the following 49 years, he's been telling what he actually understood. All the understanding about previous lives, about future, about past. He laid out all these information to us. And that's become very extremely valuable information. And the Buddha's intelligence, the Buddha's wisdom, tell us all that. And tell us that we should get out from this present. We should get out from this world of reincarnation. What is more important is not just whether reincarnation exists. How do we get out from it? The Buddha introduced to us ways to get out from this cocoon of reincarnation, in this mess. He got out from the mess. He told us all this messy stuff that we can't even dream of. And then he said, you got to get out of it. So he told us ways to get out from inferno, to get out from reincarnations. If he just tell us that you are there, you are in prison and you can never get out, that's not wrong, that's not right. So he told us that we are all in a prison now. We get bounded, we get tied up in this mess of mental sufferings that we have. But we have a chance to get out. I already got out. Here are the methods. I told you all the past deeds, all the previous life information. I told you all the information, the conceptual understanding. But I also told you that you have to get out from there. You have to walk out from your prison. We cannot walk it out for you. The Buddha cannot walk it out for you. God certainly, if there is a God, cannot walk it out for you. You have to walk out the prison door by doing all these. So that's why we're practicing the Buddha's teaching. It's about getting out from a prison, if we use this analogy. So when you believe in something, you don't necessarily have to actually see it. You use inference, postulation, premises, logical assumptions. And that's how we believe in what happens. And all these premises and postulation and inference could be proven by science later, which gradually found out to be true. The Buddha, many 2,600 years ago, already said, the world is unlimited. There's galaxies away. We don't even have telescope at that time. Nobody would believe. China would believe only just we have China. Until many, many years later, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Otherwise, we didn't know America even exists. So because of discovery, then we find out this world is unlimited. Other than this world, there's another world. So that's how we actually find out. That's what we call wisdom. And the Buddha further reminded us that don't attach to the material world. Don't attach to fame, money, reputation, sex, you name them. You attach to these things, you're always in reincarnation. You cannot get out. These are exactly the things that bind us in here. We've got to get out from it. And he introduced all these methods. Because of the karmic energies that bind us, most people can't get access to it. Even if they... You see, at the time of the Buddha, when Buddha was living, there were 3 categories of people. One category is, during the Buddha's livelihood, at the time when Buddha was living, there's only 1/3 of the people who actually talk and listen to the Buddha, actually in person. There's 1/3 who heard about the Buddha's name. Yeah, that was the Buddha who was able to get enlightenment, who was able to help us out to get enlightenment. There were only 1/3. The other 1/3, they have never heard of that name Buddha. They're in the same country though. So everybody has different, they're bound by different karmic energy. Only 1/3 of the people actually heard and actually were close to the Buddha and knew the Buddha exists. The other 2/3, they never didn't get a chance. Who determined? Who determined whether someone should have a chance? Your own karmic energy. Who determined where you should be born to? Should you be born to a billionaire's family? Should you be born to a family that is the richest in the world? Or should we be born to a family that is the poorest? Who determined all this? Not God. If God determined that you should go to a poor family, He's not God. Because He wants to ban you from getting into a good family. If God should be all merciful, right? He wouldn't put you to a poor family and test you out. I don't want to be tested that way. You put me in a poor family and test my endurance? No. Would your parents put you to a place that is full of germs and bacteria? Live or dead is your business. Your parents won't do it like that, right? So it's your own karmic energy that drives you to where you are, to where you should be. So you watch out. What is this karmic energy? Who created this karmic energy? You yourself. Through 3 ways. Your thought, your action, that's your behavior, and your speech. Every time when you're creating karmic energy. What kind of energy you've been creating since birth? Did you argue with someone? Did you fight? Were you selfish? Every thought, not just the action and speech, gets into your computer memory. You can't get away. Don't say that, my computer memory has a lot of bad stuff in it. It's not me who keyed it in. You yourself keyed it in, nobody else. You key in your own bad or good energy. Then you say, where does this good energy come from? From you. Where does this bad energy come from? This comes from you. So the Buddha said, who drives the disk drive? Is it the fingers? Is your mind? The Buddha said, not the fingers that make the mistakes. Don't blame your fingers for making... Don't blame your fingers for keying in the keyboard. Who controls the fingers? Your mind, right? The Buddha said, start with your mind, not blaming your fingers. Certainly, don't blame your keyboard. It's your mind. Your mind wants to key in that porno, not your finger. Your mind wants to do this. Your mind drives you to create that energy. You have to be extremely careful with your own mind. Don't let it go astray. Very few people can control their own mind. They always go astray. That's why we are suffering. Who creates the suffering around you? Why are you crying? Why are you getting depression? Why you are unhappy? Is it because of externalities? Because of your husband? Because of your kids who don't listen to you? Because of all your debtors who wants to get the money from you? No. You create your own world. Yeah. Metaphysical? I think the definition of metaphysical is, physical is something that we can actually prove by science, physical, right? Proof by science, by facts, by touching, by senses. All our senses can only sense physical things, right? Our senses, our eyes cannot see matter, that means above physical. So our eyes cannot see, my eyes cannot see what to think, right? My eyes can only see how you move. My ears can only listen to your sound. My ears cannot listen to the sound of your mind, right? So other than physical, there's metaphysical, and the metaphysical deal with consciousness. You cannot see consciousness. But consciousness cannot be understood just by itself. It has to be understood through physical. So they are also, they're one and the same thing. So that's the reason why in the Heart Sutra we say physical is metaphysical. Metaphysical is physical. They cannot be segregated. The metaphysical has to seek expressions to the physical. The physical itself depends on what? Causation. Causation itself is without nature. That's so the physical actually exists because of causation. The physical does not have its real nature. That's why we call it, in the Sanskrit language, asvabhava. Svabhava, that means has its real nature. When something has this real nature, it has a few characteristics. The first one, it depends on itself to becoming. It does not need any causes. It exists permanently. See these three conditions? It exists permanently. It does not depend on causes to have an existence. It exists by itself. But if you use this criteria, nothing is like that in the universe. In the universe, you cannot find one thing that exists permanently. In the universe, you cannot find one thing that exists without a cause. Right? And in the universe, you cannot find one thing that is non-changing. So if you fit into those three characteristics, then you call itself to be having its own true, real nature. But nothing like that. So you exist, but you're empty. You're empty of existence. Because you only exist on causation. Even your body, you exist on causation. Your bodies would vanish after 100 years. But you exist with a cause. That cause can be traced and traced and traced. The most present cause, if we trace it, is your dad and mom comes together to form you, to form your body. And there must be a reason for your mom and dad to come together. And there must be a reason why you get into a mom's body through some unfinished business in previous life or whatever kind of energy nobody can see, nobody knows, except you have supernatural power that you may know. So we don't have an identity. We don't have a real self. So we don't have a real ego. So the fact that we've been egoistic, actually we are hurting ourselves. The fact that we are egoistic, that's actually the problem that we're facing. We're egoistic and that we don't know. We always think that we have an ego, and that ego is so bound like a prison in us, we cannot break through this. That's why we are suffering. I remember a miracle that was performed by Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, the goddess of mercy. There was a village in China, and they were by the side of a huge river, and they formed a village in there. The inhabitants about 20,000 people, 30,000 people, and then Avalokitesvara in her contemplation knew that there's going to be flooding from that big river into the whole village. The whole village will be destroyed if the river direct its course in the middle of the village, then everything will be washed away. It's like a tsunami, you know. And then Avalokitesvara came to the village and transformed, because Bodhisattva have method of transforming the appearance of the body. He transformed herself into a beautiful lady, carrying a basket of flowers. And then they went into the village, and all these men were hovering to see a beautiful lady. But the lady was walking so fast, it was walking up the mountain. And all these Many, many villages spread around that there was a beautiful lady appear on a mountain. So they all went up there. And the whole village, most of the villages were safe. That's how they changed the fate of the villages. Yeah. So they all went up to the mountain, and then the river rushed away the villages, but not many people got killed. 90% of the villages were safe. Only for those who couldn't get away. So miracles could be performed. Actually, you know what? You can perform the miracle yourself. You don't have to wait for Buddha. So if your fate is doomed to be like this, you change the miracle. You can perform miracle. You remember there's one sentence in Zen meditation. Whatever the mind can conceive, the mind can do. Whatever the mind can think, the mind can do. If the mind can think into doing the right thing, that thing will be carried out. The mind is extremely powerful. If the mind wanted to kill, and it was always thinking about killing, they will wind up in killing. If the mind wants to help, wants to be generous, wants to be compassionate, wants to be hardworking, then you will finally succeed. It's you form your own mind. You are the master of your own fate. Whatever your mind can do, the mind can think. Actually, that is positive thinking. In North America, there are so many, Dale Carnegie, and have you ever read that book? That book? I don't know, I've read it. Think and Grow Rich. Have you read that book? Have you read that book? Huh? Huh? Napoleon Hill. He was always talking about positive thinking. You know what? Because of positive thinking, he was able to let his book become a bestseller, fill million copies. His first title was not Think and Grow Rich. His first title is How to Overcome Your Problems so that you can be successful, that kind of thing. And then it wasn't selling good. Then he used his positive power thinking and say, how can I improve this? He finally changed the title of that book to Think and Grow Rich. And then all of a sudden it becomes a millionaire copy, sell a million copies. So you always don't give up. You always think about it, as long as you're on the right path. And that book is not about telling people how to drink, how to go to casino to gamble. That book is about how to advise people to be a better person. You are creating good energy. So it's on its path to success. So are you creating good energy or bad energy? First of all, direct your own good energy. And then you direct your own good energy to help other people. That's what Mother Teresa was doing. That was not Norman Bethune of the Canadian doctor was doing. It was directing good energy to help a lot of people. That was how the great men of civilization have been doing. They're directing positive good energy for benevolent needs. Should our eyes be closed or open during meditation? Don't laugh, it's a practical question. Should we open our eyes or close our eyes? Practically speaking, if you are like this, you should be opening your eyes. Because you're sleeping. You may as well want to open your eyes. Don't pretend. You're pretending. When you are sleeping, you want to go to sleep, don't pretend you're meditating. Open your eyes. Wide, open your eyes. If you are not sleeping, yes, close your eyes. You understand? Maybe if you want to go to sleep, open your eyes. And maybe what's better, because people like to be a teacher, right? See who is sleeping. When you're sleeping, you want to check out who is sleeping. Oh, that guy is not meditating and sleeping. Oh, this guy is better than sleeping. Open your eyes, be vigilant, and be an examiner. You know how the examiner was walking around looking that people are not cheating? That's what you're doing. Open your eyes. If you want to go to sleep, open your eyes. If you're not sleeping, you're not drowsy, then you close your eyes. But then the most important is not whether your eyes are closed or open. If you close your eyes, are you concentrating in that anapanasati, in the breath? Put your object, external object, just on the breath, not on other things. So that's what you should do. If you want to go to sleep, open your eyes. If you're not sleeping, you're not drowsy, close your eyes.